back to the Washington Outsider Report on the Coalition Radio. For those newly joining the program, my name is Irina Zuckerman, and I'm the editor-in-chief of the Washington Outsider. Today with us, we have a special guest, Suha Hassen. She's a doctoral candidate at George Mason University, and she specializes in homeland security, terrorism, peace and conflict resolution, and she's here to discuss with us a topic that is both fraught and poorly understood, which is the appeal of organizations such as Hamas on religious grounds to their followers in Gaza and beyond. One of the biggest issues concerning the ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas has been the perception that the conflict is about geopolitics and about territorial conflict, territorial dispute. However, those closely watching Hamas for many years note that its rhetoric is not simply geopolitical. It's not, well, it has adopted the language of resistance in recent years. Its documents, its founding charter, its rhetoric in its appeals to its followers is religious in nature. Why that is, how it works, this is what we'll be discussing today. Suha, thank you so much for joining the program. Before we delve into this, the meat of the discussion, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, your work, and your interest in this area?
Thanks for having me first. My name is Suha Hassen. I am originally from Iraq. As you mentioned, I am a PhD candidate in George Mason University. I hold a diploma in terrorism and homeland security, and also I am a PhD candidate now, and I'm on my way to finalize my PhD dissertation, which is entitled "Why and How ISIS Join, How Individuals Decide to Join ISIS." Actually, this is a qualitative study, which I did it by myself, a face-to-face interview with ex-ISIS fighter last summer. And I want to mention that I am a war survivor, and I also survived from Al-Qaeda attack and kidnap in 2007. I also hold a PhD from medical school in Iraq. So technically, this is my 7th degree so far. That's me. Why I'm interested in Islamist group? I grew up in Iraq all my life, and I witnessed how Al-Qaeda and then ISIS and other groups destroying communities. And other groups like Iranian proxy militia killed a lot of my friends, unfortunately. And I lost two of my precious friends in there. So this is like there is a personal and academic level here. That's why I'm tracing them. So I'm looking forward more in developing models in understanding why and how those people radicalize and recruit people at individual level and a societal level. So I'm looking to both Shia and Sunni narrative, and then compare with them and look at all the mechanism trying to present a new model and understanding of Islamist terrorist group, both sides.
Interestingly enough, a lot of the discourse in the US politics in particular, but also beyond, seems to misunderstand the nature of Shia-Sunni differences, but also cooperation. How these two distinct religious traditions are at odds with each other on the one hand, but at the same time are able to cooperate, or at least some of the elements of these religious groups are able to cooperate on when it comes to external forces, and this is, I think, an issue that has become confused in understanding of regional politics.
Yeah, I agree. And I think this is very interesting question, particularly because like the Western understanding of Shia and Sunni, there's a historical and religious schism between those parties, and they will never meet. Actually, a Hamas model show a different narrative and different idea how these groups actually overlapping and cooperate when to come to Israeli animosity and hostility. And this need to trace the history and back to the root of those old narrative. Actually, we need first back to the relationship between the Brotherhood and Iran, which is back to the beginning of 1948 and 1952. This arena is very interesting to investigate by researcher and analyst. It shows that they have, both sides have the vision of you like reviving the ummah or nation or khilafah, whatever you want to call it, but those both have those sides. Then because of the like then later there also some relationship were like seems not okay, but actually they still have the positive relationship. For example, if you see the spokesman of Hamas, Abu Ubaidah, I think you are familiar with that person. Most of his narrative actually show there's a sympathy and cooperation between Iran narrative, Wilayat al-Faqih, and between them. That the wars that just maybe pass and now not recognized by intelligence, like for example, the word Mujahid, Shaheed, martyr, these words actually came from the mid or the core of Islam, of Shia theologists. So how does that work? We need to that show there is some penetration or some cooperation. I will say penetration because it shows that Hamas, that Iran has the capacity to penetrate Israel itself, penetrate the communities at the individual and societal level. Why? Because there is some, they all meet on the animosity to Israel and Jewish people. Although they have the end of their dreams different, but they meet here.
So interestingly enough, let's talk about the history of this, because I think without understanding this concept of history, we cannot easily separate those groups who have adopted this level of extreme animosity and those members of the Muslim communities who have not, or who at the very least have not prioritized this particular issue. So the question is, where does this, first of all, anti-Jewish and second, anti-Israel sentiment comes from? What are the religious roots of the rhetoric, and why have these some members of these movements have adopted them, and how did they come into an organized form?
So maybe I will start with the. Actually, I think we need to trace everything from the beginning, and if you are ready, we'll start.
I am very ready.
Okay. So here is one very important concept in Islam. It's called brotherhood. So there is in, for example, Al-Hujurat ayah or surah is say, indeed, the believers are brothers. So no matter what, if you are Shia or Sunni, you are connected by brotherhood and blood. So this is like, if we understand this idea that Shia or Sunni are brothers. Second, for example, there is a call for fight against whose perceived humiliation or oppression against Muslim. For example, look at this surah. And what is the matter with you? Fight not in the cause of Allah, and for the oppressed among men, women, and children who say, "Oh Lord, take us out of the city of oppressed people and appoint for us from yourself protector and appoint us for yourself helper." So this is called for actually 3 levels of jihad to elevate, like for example, jihad for safety of Muslim, for dignity of Muslim, for honor and religion, and then for glory of Allah. So if we get this idea, so we understand there is a connection. You know, if you're Shia or Sunni, this is connection is there, and that is the idea that brotherhood, Muslim brotherhood, and Iran in the beginning of 2000, as I said, in 1948 and in 1952, try to revive the idea of a brotherhood beyond the differences. Does that make sense?
Yes, okay. Absolutely.
Then we need to focus on the idea why they chose Jewish and anti-Semitism. Actually, there is 42 times Jewish people mentioned in Quran and 9 times mentioned as the children of Israel, and then mentioned Benu Israel, and then mentioned Jewish, and then mentioned the people of 9 times the people of book. However, the way they mentioned is they say they are cursed. So there's if you try, they are cursed people. So and it draw a bold line between us and them. So it is no matter what, you don't, the idea that you don't cross the line. However, in Islamic, in Quranic narrative, it talk about stories, history of Jewish people. But the way Brotherhood and the way that Iran reshape the narrative, it tell them, no, those are current people of Israel, not a history, not a stories, not a old narrative. No, it is now. So that's why try to draw the parallel between the past event and current event, and that's how we try to bring people together beyond the Shia and Sunni.
So interestingly enough, this, despite the fact that this cooperation persisted, at the same time, that on another level there remained this enmity and animosity. So how exactly were Iran and Muslim Brotherhood able to prioritize that particular issue above all other issues that they could potentially be involved in? There's no shortage of inter-Muslim conflicts around the world. There's no shortage of geopolitical concerns. There is no shortage of their own ambitions for caliphates or empires or whatever you want to call it. So why prioritize this issue that does not particularly help them in any way?
So first of all, you need to know that Al-Aqsa, the Masjid Al-Aqsa, and Jerusalem in particular, is a very holy and have a significant in collective memory of Muslim. It is mentioned as the third places of for all Muslim. For Shia, they do that because they have this theory of waiting Al-Mahdi al-Muntadhar, that he will come and pave the way for them to liberate Jerusalem from Jews. So it is a holy place. So for them to Al-Mahdi al-Muntadhar to appear, they have to pave the way for them now. Although they have different end, but the animosity meet here. For Muslim, for Sunni people, it's also have a significant in collective memory. It is a holy place, and for example, it's a glorify the union. It's a glorify the dignity. There is always a historical battles between between people in Syria and in Iraq and in this also in Jordan about this place with the Crusades. Now, I will say in the last 2 weeks, actually there is a new narrative, a new stories like mentioned by the jihadist theologists. For example, they mention the Battle of a Trench. And the Battle of a Trench happened in the beginning of Islam between Prophet Muhammad and Jewish people and other disbeliever from Medina al-Munawwara and other from Saudi Arabia. Now it's Saudi Arabia from Mecca. So they try to bring a parallel between the trench and the tunnel, and even they call them the youth of the tunnel, in referring to Prophet Muhammad and his new nations, in parallel with the tunnel, with those jihadists or Hamas people in tunnel. So they try to symbolize this idea that what's going on in the past and what's going on now in the tunnels is a continuity. It's something continue with the past. So the word, for example, the jihadist theologists now, they call them youth of the tunnel. Look at the trench, Surah Al-Ahzab, and they keep mentioning this surah. Now it's trending, and I was wondering why no one look at this parallel and how they continue the past. We are the new messenger or the new generation of a Prophet Muhammad. So why you don't come and join us? So is that, and then now, so why? And why is Jerusalem and why is Masjid al-Aqsa? There is a significant battle in Islam called Hattin. Hattin happened against the Crusaders and Muslims led by Salah ad-Din. So this is a very significant battle. Now it is trending now on all the media, mention it. So this is, say, the story about this this battle Hattin, and it's really need re-investigated very well. It tells that Muslims at that arena were very shattered, desperate in their humiliation. The nation was like in down situation. But then Salah ad-Din came as a leader and defeated the Crusaders. Now also jihadist theologists bring this narrative in addition to trench narrative. In addition, there's also another battle called Ain Jalut in Egypt. So they bring all this together to say, okay, look, why you don't join anymore? Look, we are the new generation of the past. So, and also use like manipulation and also abstraction and use different words from Quran to make this narrative appealing.
So interestingly enough, there was a period of time before the State of Israel was officially created, before the UN partition plan was adopted, when you had a period of nothing really happening. You had clashes between local Arab tribes and both the new Zionists and the Jewish communities who were already there. There was all sorts of instigation and rhetoric, but there was not a major movement regarding Al-Aqsa or any of this narrative. So what gives? Why wasn't that period of time exploited by these forces all that much? Why did it only happen at a later point in time?
So there's one explanation about that. I'm reading this a lot. They said that Muslim at that time this simple clashes, their Muslim were in identity crisis and they don't know where to belong and they don't know where is the meaning of the Ummah and they lost their direction. So that's why this is one of the theory that explain was there is no clash before that 1948. Then when Abdel Nasser came, when this movement came, they say this is a trigger the sense of Ummah. Then you have now there's, I will say, crying or grieving for Ottoman nation, but in a form of looking at the conflict and what Hamas doing as the center of reviving the Ummah.
So interestingly enough, the Ottoman Empire was a period of crisis for the Middle East because of the inter-ethnic clashes between the Turkic rulers and the Arabs who were essentially subjugated, and we all know the stories of Arab rebellions and uprisings and attempts at creating independence. So how did it suddenly become this idyllic state of pan-Muslim brotherhood when you had a period when Muslims were literally oppressing other Muslims?
So we need to look at the brotherhood. So this group is playing a huge part, by the way, a huge part now in this conflict, by the way, although they are not show very well in this scene, but actually you need to read the signals and the coding between those groups. And they are like they are supported by Turkey already. So this is between political and grieving for power and things like that. This is all adopted by Brotherhood about, look, actually there is a new article coming soon to explain why that they back to now. There is many articles by their theologists calling to the Treaty of London, I think 1008, something between like 100 years ago. like calling for this treaty to revive. Look what has happened. This treaty, what made the Ottoman Empire collapse. What if we look at Palestine and Hamas and Gaza as a symbol of well, like glory again. By the way, I need to mention that now the narrative about these ancient battles is very significant, and the timing here is very significant. For example, why Hamas and now the Brotherhood in particular mention these historical battles, because, for example, Hattin battle, it took 10 years of a preparation. So they are signaling to their supporters or sympathizers, look, it took a lot of Hamas preparation, similar to Hattin battle led by Salahuddin. Again, for example, the Battle of Trench actually is against Jews. It's particular against Jews, and it led to demolish the Jewish community in total. It's kind of a genocide happened there at that time, but it's showing also there was like a desperate time, hunger, fatigue occurred in this with the Prophet Muhammad. So they are telling their sympathizer allies, okay, that's why they call them the tunnel youth. Look what happened to Prophet Muhammad. Fatigue, hunger, war, because there's like a siege against by Jewish people against them. So they are trying to, okay, but the end is a victory and resilience and glory. So do you see?
So they're claiming that there's a continuity of alleged religious persecution by Jews between now and then, but this makes no sense if you look at the dynamics. First of all, you cannot equate Israel's conflict with the Palestinians to any sort of a grand plan against the entire Muslim world, and there just isn't any evidence. So how are they able to make that connection? And moreover, throughout most of the history, Jews were themselves fleeing from assorted governments, and at some points they settled in Muslim lands under Muslim control, and they did not cause any problems there. There's no historical precedent of Jews causing mass uprisings under Muslim rules throughout history since then. And so how are they going to make this enormous extrapolation, based on one example of a conflict between Israel and the Palestinians?
So here is a model I built. Actually, this is the model I built from, I'm not sure if you can see. This is a model I built actually from a face-to-face interview. I'm not sure. I will try to put my, you see it?
Yes, I see it, yes.
So this is basically when I did the interview with the ex-ISIS fighter, I tried to build the same, like to understand how those jihadist group think and how then they explore their narrative and how it is appealing actually, why there are some people buy it. So technically in Islam, there is, in general, if you remember, I told you in the beginning of the interview, there is a brotherhood connection between all Muslims in the world. And this is actually happened in the first moment, the childbirth. Your identity is part of your group identity, no matter of your language, no matter of your race or ethnicity or country. It is beyond geographical region. So there is a disconnection. Here is then we come back. So basically, Muslims' identity divided. This is from as I mentioned, it is from their how they divide the identity. This is the societal level, and this is the moral level, and this is the spiritual level. So the societal level, actually, the majority of Muslims fall here. Then the moral societal level, it's like how you behave, how you engage with your community, even how you protest, for example, protest peacefully, how you cooperate, how you volunteer. Other than this, it's like a community level with all its tasks. Here is the moral level, which is Hamas and this is spiritual. Hamas and Brotherhood try to trigger. So actually we are working here. Both, I mean, those groups, Hamas and Brotherhood, I'm not sure if it makes sense. Hamas and Brotherhood work here, triggering the identity of Muslim, telling them it is your moral duty, no matter where are you now in the world, it's your moral duty. And then this is spiritual, actually, it's the jihadist level. So I'm trying to move you from here, from moral duty, it's moral duty and spiritual duty. Actually, I'm still working on this, but so not to be generalized. Here is where the student college protest fall, but it's still because I'm still investigating this, so I don't want to make a judgment. But the student here, the student college fall in the moral level, you have a duty as a Muslim to go and protest and do your duty to show your sympathy and aligning with the idea of the civil people. Then you have the spiritual level, which is the jihadist level. So here is the full. So Hamas and Brotherhood working here, triggering this. So if we trigger this identity, so let's how they were triggering this identity. Let's see this model. Actually, this is model I built. So as you said, how they will buy this narrative. So here were manipulation of symbolism. Manipulation of symbolism, abstraction, they choose maybe one word. You imagine the risk. For example, when I say Prophet Muhammad is a mujahid, Prophet Muhammad is a martyr. So here you are moving people from this level to this level. When Izzuddin al-Qassam, like this Spokerman Abu Ubaidah, actually he was talking about this level. He called Prophet Muhammad mujahid, martyr. So this is very risky, just 2 words. So you're telling all the Shia, go do as a Prophet Muhammad doing. Can you imagine? But this pass, so you don't recognize it because you don't understand the risk. So here's the manipulation. Let's see this model. Here's the manipulation of symbolism related to promise, for example, for Shia, for the afterlife, of what is the Quranic test tell you, and how you will win, and the victory, and also about oppression, grievance, all this. Then what is it triggering? It's called trigger collective sense of grievance and injustice. Then is go there, I'm talking to you, then it's no open the gate for cognitive radicalization, because this is mean I am talking to you, why you don't respond? So here, then after that, you receive a narrative, then you have the 3 levels of identity provocation. So this way, if I use manipulation of symbolism or abstraction or one word, then I didn't interpret it very well, and I didn't understand this. As for example, for counter-terrorist groups, I didn't understand it, and I didn't understand the meaning. Then it passed, but where it's passed, it passed to motivate or trigger the 3 level of identity. Here, what's happened if we trigger this spiritual, particularly the spiritual level and moral level? Here, you will, as a person at individual level, then you will be like identity dispersonalization. You'll be like, what is my identity, where I belong? Do I belong to them or belong to, like, for example, as American citizen, do I belong to these people, or do I belong to Muslim people, or do I belong to Hamas? You don't know. Then here you will be embracing extremist behavior, because they move you from societal level. For example, look at the protest. They are moving from societal level to moral level. I'm not sure when this will happen, if this like manipulation of narrative keep going. Then, for example, to the joining of other jihadist group. So that's why it's very important to understand. The idea is, okay, even Hamas defeated. What is the Hamas legacy? What they left for other? They left actually the manipulation of the identity of Muslim around all the world. You know, so now you see the dangers of this. So, for example, as a researcher and analyst, I'm okay. So my fear actually not from Hamas itself, but what after Hamas? Because this is manipulation of narrative. Keep going.
So this is where my question lies. For a very long time, up until recently, Hamas was regarded as a regional irredentist organization, not as some sort of a global phenomenon, despite its ideological roots in the Muslim Brotherhood, which is a global, organization with global movement with global goals.
Right.
Nevertheless, Hamas never tried to distance itself from that rhetoric. It focused physically on the conflict with Israel, but its charter, its founding language have always been in line with what you just described, but it's only recently that it found an opportunity to spread its message far beyond Gaza and its local, vicinities, West Bank and so forth, and to have that sort of broader appeal. So how did this happen? What took for Hamas to be able to build itself up as something appealing far beyond that particular conflict? And for many years, the Muslim world was not fond of Hamas. Many of the states declared it a terrorist organization and so forth. Then all of a sudden it jumps in and becomes this, reignites the Muslim Brotherhood narratives, even though they're couched in the language of territorial resistance.
Okay. So if you remember, I said about the brotherhood and the connection. This is very, very aspect that need to be pay attention a lot. Let's back to Hadith the Prophet Muhammad say, to demolish the Kaaba stone by stone, it is easier in the sight of God than to shed the blood of a single Muslim person. I repeat it again. To demolish the Kaaba, which is the holy place of all Muslims, stone by stone, is easier in the sight of God than to shed the blood of a single Muslim person. So, if we took this, which is also currently in all, if you listen to the, if you listen and understand what is the jihadist theologist or Hamas Brotherhood particularly saying, repeating this text. So here is come to the, it's called equation of a blood. So as the blood of Muslim is very important for each single Muslim, and they are connected as a brotherhood, and is part of your identity, is of a group your identity. Hamas actually rely on what I call blood equation. Here they use women, particularly women and children, to visualize the visualize the casualties. Look at the media, it's going crazy. If you follow up since the October 7, you only notice it's called Gaza war, Gaza civilians. So they've the main visualize on the children and the women. They are saying, okay, this is, look what you're doing. So they use what's called blood equation. I condense or I show more of those images. So here again, what they are triggering? They are triggering the moral duty and the spiritual duty of the Muslim identity. Here you have the duty then to give up your societal identity and move from this level to extremist level. That's why it's appealing, because here again, this is also a model I built. This is condensation of symbolism. So I use this stone by stone. So which is more important? Muslim person, blood, or Al-Kaaba? They say it is in Quran and Hadith say, no, it is more important Muslim blood. That is why Hamas in particular published thousands of images of women and women or children. By the way, I read a lot. Many Muslim women around the world. And this is also interesting. Maybe we will see more women like radicalize and join jihadist, the new jihadist group. They say, this is look like my son. This is look like he speak like my son. He sleep like my son. His hair, his eye. So there is this, you bring the image, which is like visualizing the casualties. It's called condensation of blood. I condense more blood, but just follow up the since October 7. What is the media, especially the Arab media, publish? Mostly, or I would say 90% women and children. And this is triggering the spiritual and moral duty to join. So it is not necessarily, although Hamas is, as you said, it is a local group and it's just against, they don't have this agenda of go outside the Palestine or Israel. Then here what they are saying, I want to reshape the new philosophy of jihad. That is the whole idea. I will tell you, I am the new leader, the new hidden gem of the philosophy of jihad. I will show you all the Muslim, because they keep telling the Muslims in their messages, you are sleeping, you are sleeping people, you don't have, they call us sleeping or dead people actually, because they don't take actions, violent action. You are sleeping or dead people. Now we will make you wake up. If nothing make you wake up, then the blood will make you wake up, because you're obligated to do that.
So I don't understand this following issue. I understand this concept and its appeal, but in isolation. But if you look at the reality is the very same people who are now making this narrative so effective are the same people who have been going and oppressing Muslims, other Muslims all over the world, and have contributed to conflicts of Muslims and mass killings and all of the same things that they're now accusing Israel and Jews of supposedly doing. And once again, they're claiming that somehow all the Jews around the world are responsible for that, and turning this inter-Palestinian conflict into this giant spiritual battle, whereas there's actually no broader context for it whatsoever, simply by using these images. How is it possible that people don't see that these groups are liars who are exploiting a political conflict in their favor, especially after failing as a government entity and failing to develop? And how are people not seeing that they're being manipulated after everything that Hamas and its fellow travelers in the region have done over the years to other Muslims?
So here's the thing. I mentioned that 42 people mentioned in Quran and 9 times mentioned in different way. So technically we are over 51 time people mention the Jewish people mentioned in Quran. So let's see how they are mentioned and cited. I put a few quotes. They said, so the most hostile people to the believers. Who's the believers in this case?
The Muslims.
Muslims. Let's see what they said in Quran. You will surely find the most intense of the people in animosity toward believers, the Jews. This is part of the quote Al-Ma'idah. Let me explain to you as I wrote it. This verse highlights the Jewish and the disbelievers or Christians are the most animosity towards believers, reflecting long history of confrontations. Does that make sense? This is one. And they described as they are materialist and attached to worldly life. I'm sorry, but this is how to make the things close to why they don't see. Because if you open Quran, for example, and you see more than 52 from the first page to the, but again, it is about history and other old narrative. But if you keep saying this is what is now, what is the Quran is describing those people, how they don't buy it. For example, today I read an article by a jihadist theologist. He say, why are you doing? Quran is describing Jewish people, and he described their behavior. They have you cannot trust them. You can't believe them. Example, even with the peace attempt now, they say Quran say this text and this text and this text. Why you don't follow your religion and follow the Arabic leaders who are there betray you all the time? Let's see another one. Betrayal and lack faithful, for example. But again, the narrative was so ancient and old. I'm not talking about now, but hundreds of articles in media, in Facebook, in Telegram, in everything is tell you that they are betrayal and lack of faithfulness. Do you see the narrative? So it is very, very a lot of hostile narrative. So with this, who will not buy it? So let's see this. Corruption and spreading mischief. This is like one of the most thing now in the media in general, by the way. And they strive thought the land causing corruption, and Allah does not like corruptors. This is particularly explanation. This verse describes the children of Israel constantly strive the cause of corruption. This part of the article, actually, I quoted today from one of the jihad theologists. He accused Jewish people of corruption of the land, corruption of the Jerusalem.
So what do they mean by corruption exactly?
Corruption is mean like destroying. So here is the thing. Also, one of the things that Western societies or Western academia misunderstand it. For example, corruption. Corruption in Arabic language, it doesn't mean corruption. The things we understand. Corruption is mean destroying, waging a war, killing people. But Quran use one word, corruption. So you'll see it and read it as a corruption. But if you don't have this historical and religious, cultural background, you will not saying why he say corruption, but it is not corruption. That's very interesting. That's why I say that all the time. It's very important to understanding not just the grammar, not just the interpretation, but the historical and religious root of each word. Each word has a unique interpretation, and in the same time has a multiple interpretation. So, for example, if I say fatah, open, you will translate it or open. But actually, fatah, which is, by the way, Hamas main spokesman, he say always the time, فتحنا لك فتحا مبينا إن يفتح لك الله. So this is a promise of a glory, is a promise of victory. But look at that in translation, open, but it's not open. I'm sending a signals to other people that we are on the way to win.
So what we're seeing here is a pattern of using highly specific language that wouldn't make sense to someone who's not either a theologian or someone whose entire life was spent in this particular context, understanding these codes. How any political leaders, whether in Israel, the United States, or even for that matter in the region, who are not themselves as educated in understanding every aspect of this rhetorical appeal, how are they supposed to fight ideological battles? Because, destroying an army, it takes, whatever time it takes, but destroying the sort of ideological narrative building which is spreading, you need to, at the very least, have a grasp of what it actually means before you even start to begin to fight it. So de-radicalizing people wouldn't in this context means just telling them about the value of human life or why they need to accept the existence of the state of Israel and just, live their lives.
Yeah.
It means literally undoing these narratives that have been deeply rooted and are now being massively promoted without anyone even understanding what's actually happening. So help me understand how is that even possible to fight such a war?
So here's the thing. That is what I have noticed so far. We are like all the kind, I will say not all, most of the models, radicalization models, start with the grievance. But however, there's a step before grievance. It's called, I'm here specifically talking about jihadist group. There is the steps called manipulation of the words, manipulation of religious texts. And that's why I'm always call for, before we are going to say grievance and injustice, look to the first step, the things that trigger all this mechanism. It is the manipulation of narrative. Here, I will say, those who have experience in I'm not sure, but it's counter-terrorist need those who have experience in this area in particular, between theology and between religion and between counterterrorism, because we need to make this connection before we go to the grievance. I cannot start with the grievance because I need to know what trigger grievance. It is the narrative, but what type of narrative? It is not just manipulation. It is the type of word that coded. There's a form of coding. For example, I'm currently looking at here you have the superficial level, and then you have the deep level. What's going on with the reading of jihadist scholars or jihadist narrative or jihadist book, whatever you say? They read just okay. They read the upper level, but what about the deep level? For example, now Hamas and Brotherhood, in particular, they work on the deep level that no one can understand, just them and those who understand what they are sending. As I mentioned, why they mentioned in particular the Hattin, the trench, they are signaling each other. They are sending coding. And this time after, why didn't they use this Hattin and trench before 8 months, before October 7? If you follow that, if you trace them, they never mention it. But these days, I listen to them. Why they bring this here now? Actually, they're signaling, okay, is this kind of cooperation? We need to understand if this they are telling each other, okay, we will do something else. That's how we need to investigate it. They are working on the deep level, not the upper level of the language. And this is that's why they call Arabic language is a living creature, actually, or a living organism. So do you understand that grammar? Yes, I understand the grammar. But what is the deep level of a grammar? Do you understand? No, you cannot understand it because you are not from this area. You cannot understand the historical root and the religious root and the political root. So they are signaling each other recently, and they are telling each other, let's cooperate, let's move more. So one of the thing why we need to understand why they call them the tunnel youth. The tunnel youth. It is very interesting name. That is, I read in one of their articles. They call them tunnel youth because they're telling them, keep moving, keep fighting, don't give up. So that is what's Brotherhood signaling to the tunnel of youth tunnel. That's what they call them. Keep fighting, so don't give up. Did the counter-terrorists here, terrorism got it? No, they didn't get it, right? They didn't know that they're coding each other by keep fighting. But how is that, and what is the next step? How they will survive, how they sustain, it depends on how they code each other. Let's keep listening to them and understand their deep level of narrative, then we will get where they are going. If we get that, then we know the next step and the next step. It's not just a matter of triggering the collective identity. It is telling now how they cooperate with each other.
My question is, why have the Muslim theologians opposed to this sort of to the brotherhood ideology and to all these things? Why have they failed? Because for a few years we had a period of time where several states appeared to be deliberately fighting this ideology on their own terms with their theologians, with their resources, understanding the cultural and religious context the way Western non-Muslim politicians and circles and even other theologians could not. So they appear to have been promoting the people who understood this language, who understood this appeal, and who were equipped to fight it. Why has this not worked out? Why has this resurgence, which happened before October 7th, why has it succeeded?
I will say this is my understanding of, because this I will bring the experience from Iraq, from what I lived and witnessed. This group survive and find a fruitful place to grow because of the political grievance, because of the poverty, and because of the also economic situation, because of the corruption, the real corruption inside the government, unemployment, the high level of employment. When groups for like militias come and give you money, for example, I interviewed one of the small young youth in Iraq. I said, "Why you join?" They said, "I joined because I don't have one to eat. I live 1 week without eating dried bread." Similarly, although I am not from Egypt, but I think Brotherhood work on societal level. They work or operate like organization. They give food, they give money, so they create their own community there. But basically, they work on the poor communities.
Mm-hmm.
But recently, I have noticed also they have also started to develop on the educated communities. They appeal more people because of the things that happen, the political situation, arrest, which is, we'll say, not comfortable political situation in Egypt. So they start people more appeal to Brotherhood because they see it represent the dream of from Egypt, especially with Egypt is taking neutral, I will say neutral position now. But in general, things connected by the political and economic situation. So it is easier to push your problems, look to the outside enemy, and create this enemy outside. Look outside so you're pushing your problems outside by making Jews is the main enemy, focusing there, put your focus, and that's things work. So maybe more human rights for those communities will make the pressure on Israelis less. So instead of focusing on Israel, let's focus on our problem. And that's how things work.
Well, we've seen that before. We've seen that, decades ago. But the question is, Muslim Brotherhood has had an opportunity to govern in Gaza, in Egypt. We have seen that wherever they come, they end up being the cause of quote unquote corruption, destruction themselves, precisely because they, their appeal is power, their appeal is, greed.
Yeah.
They themselves are inclusive, insular. They're not, their family oriented networks are not inclusive to other people. So the question is how even in the, in terms of these larger socio-economic and political grievances and frustrations, why follow the same route that has already failed before? We have concrete examples of these people not being to deliver what they promised in very recent years, not even, 100 years ago.
So you mean now why they are following their rules and why?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hamas was failing in Gaza before October 7th. Hamas had created an unsustainable economic situation. Muslim Brotherhood has failed in Egypt. It caused massive problems, economically. Okay, you can say that, the Sisi government was not successful in everything, but that's a regular geopolitical situation. You have economic problems and issues in everywhere in the world. They don't always lead to this extremism. They sometimes lead, there are other ways of dealing with the situation than appealing to things that just failed right beforehand. So what's the story here? What is the real reason?
So again, again, we need to back to the brotherhood connection. So
Mm-hmm.
this is a holy issue, brother and Jerusalem, brotherhood and Jerusalem. And that is why I said, let's follow what's going on in the media, what type of narrative is going on. It's mostly rely on the blood of the civilians. That's why if you by the way, people in Gaza are very, very angry from Hamas, are very, very angry from Hamas, and they look to the moment they dispose them. This is one. That is why I said they are trying to reshape the philosophy of jihad. They are trying to launch their narrative outside of the Gaza border. But how this happened? It's happened with the cooperation of with the Brotherhood, who wants to revive the Ummah. But how they revive the Ummah? They want something corner in central to launch the project of Ummah. So everything from the idea of reviving the project of Khilafah, project of reviving Ummah. If we understand this connection, then we understand how those two, there's this manipulation of narrative, this manipulation. For example, like how many times I ask many people in Middle East, what is the idea of using women and children as a human shield by Hamas? If they are saying, oh, we are fighting for our people, why they sacrifice them? If we understand this is equation, I fight for you, then why I put you in the front of the war?
Mm-hmm.
And also, I don't care about the casualty. I don't care about the casualty. I don't care what's happened to them. I don't care about if they are hungry or no. I don't care about it. Like for 8 months, how's this work? For whom I fight? Then Hamas. Here's the thing: Hamas want to reshape the ideology and the narrative of jihad. I am sacrificing my people for the sake of Ummah, this is the narrative of brotherhood trying to sell. Look at Hamas, they are sacrificing their women, children, life, and home just for the sake of Ummah. So why you are waiting? That's why it's appealing. People see they are targeting poor people, they are targeting uneducated people, they are telling them, look who's sacrificing for you on behalf of Ummah, for reviving it, for reviving the nations of Al Khilafah. Hamas and Brotherhood, both of them cooperating together to make this appealing.
So let's look at the structure of this organization because, even within Muslim Brotherhood, much less the Iran-backed Shia groups, you have divergent leadership, you have internal power struggles, you have everybody wants to be the leader and wants to be the face of the movement. Everybody wants to be the important guy in the room. So
Yeah.
how do they manage to how does it work structurally? The communications between, Yahya Sinwar in Gaza and Mishal in Doha, and some Muslim Brotherhood family leaders in Turkey, and some other Muslim Brotherhood faction in London. How do they coordinate on this particular issue while also dealing with their own political differences, and how do they even communicate in such a wide way without being intercepted and failing on the basic logistical level?
Yeah, there's one thing I read in their text. Everyone and everything should be sacrificed for the sake of jihads against Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? Everything and everyone. So technically that is, let's solve this problem first, then we will discuss later. So that's how they deal. Let's sacrifice everything and let everything behind us till we get rid of Banu Israel or Jewish people first. And let's return, like we capture Jerusalem first, then we'll negotiate later. This is technically it's everywhere also in their media. We'll talk about these other logistical problems, leadership problem. It's not necessarily now. We are focusing on jihad now, reviving the project of Ummah now. Then we'll discuss who's the leader later.
So this is, we are talking about a giant network here. How does that actually, but even let's say they succeeded at managing to prioritize this and, set their grievance, internal issues inside. Still, when you have that many people trying to accomplish a terrorist or criminal conspiracy of any sort, the more people get involved, the harder it is to actually carry out without some major parts of it getting either failing for whatever reason or simply getting caught at doing what they do. How have they managed to maintain this level of success in actual logistics?
I'm not sure about this question actually. Still trying to navigate about this, but pretty sure about narrative, how they communicate, not yet on this level actually. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
So let's go back to what you were talking about, grievances. We are seeing that a lot of these grievances are appealing not only to Muslim followers, but also assorted, radical leftist, academic circles and assorted, disgruntled, disaffected youth and, random people who have absolutely nothing to do with this history, with the coded language, who don't really understand what they are getting themselves into from that perspective. How are they managing to make these very internal, very history laden narratives appealing to the outsiders?
Again, there is, I said, there's a huge engine is working on looking at the victims of the war, of this current war. They are trying to use these images to symbolize this. But for me, because I'm digging currently on these issues, I see Iranian hand in this, in penetration Western societies. And I believe there's something happened, which is I'm trying still navigate and try to investigate what the role of Iran in this holy things moving students in the universities. But this is, I will say, it is nothing. It is not nothing, not something easy to ignore it. So that's my little understanding of these current issues.
So what I'm seeing from a geopolitical perspective is that these networks are absolutely a threat to Muslim state actors who are threatened by them precisely because they're being delegitimized as failing leaders who are not able, who, betrayed the Muslim community, blah, 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 and so on and so forth, the usual. But now they are increasingly trying to make accommodations by using heated rhetoric against Israel, banging on the table and so forth. But in reality, let's face it, some of these countries have deliberately allowed the flood of Gaza-related imagery into their media, and they have, in fact, backed away from translating or making available anything that contradicts these grievance narratives to their own people. So as much as these narratives have appeal based on this communal understanding and emotional level, they could, these state actors could have done more to guard themselves out of their own self-interest against these attacks. They think that by, taking sides, that appear to be pro-Hamas, and in line with that, they will hold themselves off. But in reality, let's face it, that's not the case. At the first opportunity, if these people ever get hold of them, they'll be murdered immediately, and nobody will remember that they accommodated anybody. So the question is, why are they doing it? How do they not understand the level of danger they themselves are facing from this situation?
So, so which kind of state actor are you talking about? Because if
I'm
you say,
talking about the Gulf state, I'm talking about Egypt, of course. I'm talking about, basically even quote unquote moderate, I don't like that word, but reform-oriented Muslim leaders who have been struggling with this issue internally and who have tried to delegitimize Muslim Brotherhood and its assort in Iran and their assorted Islamist proxies and fellow travelers.
so I will say, if I understand you well, what is the problem of being martyr? For them, if you are talking, let's take for example the Shia leader.
Sure.
So let's go this way. So for them it's a holy duty to sacrifice themselves. So there's no problem with that, and this is the way that their brain working.
No, but I'm talking about those leaders who don't really buy into this, who understand the danger of these grievance narratives, and who understand that they themselves are a potential target precisely if they are not able to control the way the sentiment is spread through the society. So, okay, so why are they letting these narratives persist? Why are they not limiting the amount of propaganda flowing into the society? And why are they limiting the alternative views that could have exposed their communities to something else and maybe make people less zealous to follow the Hamas coding and whistle, dog whistle?
Actually, I have two explanation for this because first either they don't understand the gravity of this narrative, which I think it is they don't understand. It is a flood of narrative. It's not just a flood of Al-Aqsa. It's a flood of narrative. There's no way to control. You have how many theologists in Egypt? Thousands. For example, now in Egypt, each Friday there is prayers and there is a khutbah against Jewish. That's what my understanding, actually, to be accurate, because that's why I thought. So how many mosques in Egypt you have? How do you unless there is you understand how the gravity of this kind of narrative. So how many mosques in Egypt? Let's go to Iraq. Thousands of mosques, Shia and Sunni. Same thing each Friday. Then also they have five prayers in the mosque. Let's say start from here. You have five prayers, mostly talking about the current conflict. So both Shia and Sunni. Do you imagine how is that? And why not? Let's focus on the war in Israel instead of focusing on our problem. This make their life easy, by the way. Even so you shift your problem from here to here. So that is for let's go in Jordan. In Jordan, there is a huge percentage of Palestinian who's Jordanian, they are originally from Palestine before. So this is a huge also animosity and hostility against Jewish people, and this is again connect us to the role of Arabic language. It's very unique language, I will say. Very have different formations, structures, but the messages is different. So I'm not sure how they control the media, or they control the mosque, or they control, unless there is a very structural change and rehabilitation on whole system to them. So I hope this makes sense and answer your question. But it's too much, actually. Sometimes I spend 6 to 7 hours just to try to capture the new narrative Imagine each minute, each second, there is article here, article there from the jihadists, and all of them in one direction. Again, anti-Semitism and Jewish. So you keep listening, and you keep reading this kind of narrative. And there's also the part of the what is Hamas, for example, or the Arab media or jihadist media try to publish, for example, using sad songs, sad nasheed, jihadist nasheed, combined with the picture. The emotional level is going. Okay, I'm telling you, I heard many people, I read about many people say, I cannot sleep because of what's going on against civilian in Gaza. So imagine people say, for example, I boycott for 8 months for Starbucks or this. So I'm not sure how they counter this kind of narrative without understanding the gravity of it.
I don't think that understanding currently exists, and I think until people hear what you're saying, that there is this deep-rooted appeal, that appeal is massive, overwhelming, at times facilitated by state actors, at times, overwhelming the state actors who are not able to keep it off themselves, until there is a tool developed to figure out a counter narrative, effectively, disclosing the manipulative and deceptive nature of this. I don't really see that there's going to be any solution. I think, there's only so long Israel can hold in Gaza without other actors closing in. Fine, they'll destroy command and control structure, but they still have to figure out how to continue. Either they stay in Gaza forever on their own, which means continuing war, or they bring in other state actors, but regardless, they cannot, unless there is a counter narrative element, the recruitment of Hamas will continue, and the moment Israel withdraws, they will be back to getting weapons. And back to fighting in some form. So, and that could probably happen not just in Gaza but elsewhere if they have contingents of pro-Muslim Brotherhood groups. So we are once again disregarding this ideological element, this ideological war, and the fact that there is this ideological clash that is far more important than the current military action. As far as I see, this military action is just a rallying call.
Yeah, right.
It's just the beginning. It's not the goal in itself.
Yeah. So that's why I want to say everything Hamas did is a long project. So even they got defeated, they calculated everything. It is what Israel is doing now, is they think if they defeated Hamas, end of the story. But actually, it is the beginning of the story. It is the beginning of the story. Hamas did everything necessary to target people, to radicalize them, to target Muslim people, especially youth, to radicalize them. And I see they are succeeded very well when everyone started to call the tunnel event, the tunnel issues is youth tunnel. They are symbol now. They are hero now. So when you have a hero on your this huge symbol, what do? You follow the symbol. You follow them. You follow your heroes. They are a role model now. Role model for what? For a new jihadist group. Hamas' idea was either I win or I lose everything. Let me, if you defeated me, then I will bring in new enemies, new groups. The idea is of creating more jihadists, more extremists, more violent group against Israel. So what? From where? They will come. This is the whole idea. Let's focus again. What is why they use people, why they use women and children as a human shield. This is a very significant issue for all Muslims, actually. Why that either, so when you created all this symbolism and visual symbolism, they did succeed. So Israel defeated Hamas, but the collective memory is injured in all Muslim. It's injured. There is a grievance. That's what they wanted. That's what Hamas wanted. And they succeed. I'm sorry to say that, but actually they succeed. They succeeded because of creating a grievance, a collective memory of a grievance. And they succeed in uniting all Muslim, I think billion Muslim around the world by the blood bond, the blood bond. So they did. They revived the idea that destroying Al-Kaaba stone by stone is easier in the eye of Allah more than the killing one Muslim person. But which person? Is called the oppressed and vulnerable people. And they Hamas since October 7th tell them this movement, I think before 3 days, publicly release a new video. They use the surah or text from Quran that mainly focus on the oppressed and vulnerable people. I'm referring the oppressed and vulnerable people in Quran, meaning women and children. You see the connection?
Mm-hmm. So debunking these narratives requires figuring out how to undo this flood of appeal that's extremely potent. It's extremely emotional, it's extremely potent, and it's difficult to say, oh, but Hamas was the one who was using them, or oh, some of the civilians were themselves participating in terrorism, because it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
If you create an image of an outsider, they will still blame the outsider. Even if they're angry at Hamas, they will still ultimately blame Israel as well as Hamas.
Actually, they blame Israel first, and they don't blame Hamas, especially the outsider. That's why I told you the people in Gaza understand the situation because they live day by day with Hamas fighters. But for the outsiders, they are a symbol of jihad.
But here's the question. We have seen the same exact method in Yemen with the Houthis. We have seen the same exact thing with Hezbollah in Lebanon, Iran, of course, with all these groups, and anywhere where you have seen those sorts of groups, people should understand, and nevertheless they continue to not understand. So how does that work? What does it take for people to realize that they're being subjected to a violent fantasy? This violent language, this violent dehumanizing indoctrination that prevents them from ever finding a peaceful coexistence.
It's maybe longer process, but this is how I believe things will undo things, is calling for renew the Islamic narrative in both Shia and Sunni. We need to bring a new narrative that doesn't draw bold line and othering of Jews or even Christian people, because there's othering and dehumanizing.
But that was tried, and we have seen several states tried, and then eventually these forces resurged, and whoever was trying it was marginalized. And now they no longer are able to do that. Geopolitically, the actors who were trying to do exactly what you said have become marginalized due to other narratives aimed at dehumanizing them and weakening them politically. So what cleric would stand up and face death in the hands of these people, or imprisonment or isolation at the very least, if they're seeing that there's no political backing for them?
That's why we need more narrative research centers that focus on the manipulation and the abstraction and the way that the jihadist group put their narrative and export it to people. that is a missing actually. I hear about narrative strategy center here and there in the United States, but I never heard about one in the Middle East. I'm not sure if there's one in Israel, maybe or two, but there's nothing in.
Nothing of the sort that you just described. Not
Yeah,
not very, very general, maybe a little bit about the Al-Aqsa narrative and so forth. There have been some efforts here and there, but not nearly as deep as what you're saying.
but now there's a zero. I'm pretty sure there's a zero narrative centers that tackle these issues or understand. Although there's, I believe some people understand this overlapping situation between the manipulation, particularly manipulation and grievance and terrorism. But where's these centers? Where are these centers that target this narrative? It took me every day 6 to 7 hours to understand this, but it is just my own my own efforts. But where is these centers that help to counter this manipulation of narrative? Zero in Middle East. I'm not sure even here in the United States there are centers that help to understand the deep levels of the
None.
narrative
There's
manipulations.
there's nothing. Absolutely nothing. I've seen individual people do that, but they don't have the funding, the backing, or any formal infrastructure to make this possible.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So,
Unfortunately, yeah, if there is, I still believe in academia. I still believe that this effort not to be done by clerk or because they don't understand its effect on the people's brain and how
mhm.
psychological impact. But it's the work of the academic people. They should or we should produce more knowledge about this to show it is not just a language matter. It is how the narrative and how's the things that related to, for example, I will say here, I'm talking about the Middle East, how the Quranic language, how the Arabic language are intertwined together. And this connection between them, if we understood it, if we unpack it, then we just trace the historical and religious root, and not just, but also we can predict the next attack. When Hamas and Brotherhood signaling each other and coding each other, what does that mean? We can predict their next attack, their next step. But who's doing that? No one doing that. We are just saying, okay, this is Hamas and this is Gaza, but they are connected. They are connected by language, by the deep level of language, of Arabic language.
That is something that will require a concerted effort. It cannot be fought alone by separate and desperate geopolitical actors. It has to include cooperation from within the Muslim world. And I don't see how Israel can fight an ideological battle without working with the Muslims to fight it.
I agree because Muslim mentality is you receive early orientation about your religion the first moment you're born. So it's shaped. So it's not just the language. There's a shaping of religion here and in Arabic. It shape your behavior, your identity, who you are, where you belong, shape your relation with others, and from my perspective, the most dangerous thing is how these jihadists tell the narrative that you as a person, you should give up your agency, your identity for the sake of that group, which is the most riskiest thing from my perspective that I see. Why, as a person, I need to give up my agency, my identity, my family, my peers, my life for the sake of a group? Do you imagine? You have to give up everything and you dissolve that. And this is what Hamas and other jihadist group try to sell to other. But how we understand that from the language, from the Arabic language is the language of Quran. If we understand the deep level and what they are calling for, I call you to survive, sacrifice yourself for your group. And this is what kind of narrative is circling now. Yeah.
It creates an extremely potent collectivist appeal that
Yeah.
also is not based in just economics, like communism, or some sort of a political identity, like, political ideology. It brings this sort of a connection of community, which is a very, very strong force.
Right.
This is what has created societies. So to undo this level of appeal, I mean, it will require something that is at least equally potent, equally appealing, and at the same time does not contradict this existing the actual language of the Quran. I think the people who are saying that Quran itself can be rewritten or reformed by non-theologians are deluding themselves. I think their approach is dangerous and
No, this is a very dangerous, if you started from here, no one will buy it. But I will start maybe with the manipulation, with the wars, with understanding the deep level, the deep messages send it. For example, instead of I'm telling you, Quran is saying this. For example, this verses, those enemy of Allah. Okay, but when does this happen? Before Quran is telling you a story before 3,000 years, even it doesn't tell specifically. He said the people of book. Who knows who's the people of the book? But jihadist group, no, they say the people of book are here. Quran is citing Jewish people. You see the manipulation? Quran didn't say the people of book. He said the people of book. Why you are citing Jewish people in particular and saying this is what Quran saying about? And why you bring a historical things now in our current day to say this is what is our task and duty? Why you are saying things happened, for example, in this war and this battle before 1,500 years, and make a symbol, make the event now and make things happen and show it is you tell me this is what the continuity of the past. This is it is not confusing as much, but it is a messages, and if we don't interpret this, if we don't intercept these messages, it's very dangerous.
Well, here's the thing. China, which is, obviously a non-Arab, non-Muslim country, has also has definitively created a state of oppression for Muslims.
Yeah.
So why this, they are also quote unquote other. So why has the Muslim world not risen up against China? At what point this geopolitical convenience, clash with this religious fervor? I mean, why hasn't, this oppression of Muslims in China created this same sort of outrage, or at least some outrage? There isn't any. I would understand why Jews are still the number one enemy, but why isn't China also an enemy, if not maybe number one?
Here again is the language. That's why I told you everything starts with manipulation of language. We don't like Arabic people don't speak Chinese, and they don't understand their narrative, and we don't understand their dilemma or of Russian situation. And it is also far from you. And the media don't bring all the time all what's happened to China people. And by the way, the images that come from China about the Muslim situation is very cheerful, very beautiful. And I'm one of the people who saw the people of China, Muslim, look at their mosque, look how they pray, and the image is very beautiful. So image here and the story behind the image told about China is totally different, which is then it's not make China is your enemy, even there is oppression, but we don't see it. I never see anything about about Muslims oppression in China in the media. Conversely, you see these things from okay, this image of child, this mom, this image or that image. You see it every day, every moment. Just write in Arabic, in especially I will say Facebook, WhatsApp. What else? Twitter, by the way, Twitter play a huge role in this issue. I'm not sure why Twitter let extremist posts.
I have good reasons. I mean, Elon Musk is very close to Qatari leadership and
Yeah.
to Islamist factions in Saudi Arabia, specifically Islamist factions.
Yeah.
He got funding for Twitter from those people. So there lies your answer.
Yeah, all it's the funny thing. All non-states access publishing things in Twitter, by the way, and all against Israel, anti-Semitism. Yeah.
This is absolutely, I mean, until recently, they even had Hezbollah there with no problem, and still you have Ayatollah Khamenei with no problem. Still,
Yeah,
he
no
has
problem.
accounts, and the Taliban and all these other people. So,
Yeah,
so
I saw that. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, unfortunately.
so yeah, we are fighting a very uneven war, but yeah, crucial work like yours is a good first step towards understanding it. There are other scholars; it would be worth bringing them together. But again, the very lack of understanding is the reason why there is a lack of funding for this issue. There just isn't even anything approaching the level of of value into ideological element of this war that that is necessary, and until that captures the attention and the realization of both funders and political authorities, I don't think we are going to get very far against these groups. I'm sorry to say, I think they will continue to succeed and proliferate. I think simply cutting off, funding to colleges is not going to cut it, because they don't.
I agree. Yeah, I think personal effort, writing article here and there will it may bring attention, but not make the total change you want. Yeah, for example, I dream of making a big change in this manipulation narrative. But again, if you have the resources, the right place, the right funding for creating these things to counter this manipulation and this narrative, you cannot one hand cannot clip with the other hand unless there's collective effort to make a change. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your valuable insights, and I really appreciate and hope to continue following your very important work. And I
I
hope you
appreciate
continue sharing these insights, and I hope we'll find a way of creating the sort of structure that can move these things forward in a much more capable, much more, massive way, to even start to begin to counter the flood of narratives that you're describing. And to everyone watching this, I hope you take away the need to reevaluate the conflict, not just on the basic of simple geopolitical terms, but understanding what makes this particular war different from any other conflict. What makes the religious element and the religious language so potent, so appealing, so inspiring, despite the obvious fallout for the so many people from this violence, and why the perpetuation of this conflict cannot be simply resolved by simple military or political action, why ideology will play a huge role. We'll be back as usual next week, the Washington Outsider Report on the Coalition Radio, Tuesday night, 9 p.m. Please stay tuned, and thank you so much, Suha, for joining us. Have a great evening to everyone who's been watching.